in Zephyr Hills, they have, was it Crystal Water, different companies there that I believe are, that's why you can't go to Crystal Springs anymore because they're using the water. Does Swift Mud regulate that as well?
Yeah, I don't know that that's why you can't go to Crystal Springs anymore. A lot of the spring flows, they're only capturing what's coming out. So they would be scalping water that would ultimately wind up in the Hillsborough River. But they're really not doing much unless they're pumping from the ground. They would not impact the pressure that's there that provides the spring flow. But all the withdrawals over the years really dried up a lot of springs, and the most famous one is Kissingen Springs in Bartow, and it has not flowed in many, many years. Now, I will tell you, just based on growing up around Saddle Creek, where there were flowing springs around there when I was young, I don't really remember them, but I hear about them. Flow stopped with phosphate mining because as a part of the mining process back in the early days, they did a lot of dewatering. They'd start digging a hole and drop a big pump in and start pumping the water out to get it out of the way. So they were moving large quantities of water from beneath the surface into Saddle Creek and the Peace River and Charlotte Harbor and the Gulf of Mexico.
I'm
And
assuming all that is stopped now.
those practices changed many, many years ago, but at that point, we had a lot of straws sticking in the ground, pulling out water. And but it's a constant battle to try to make sure that they don't over permit and that they try to limit those withdrawals. And it's not a lot of fun. When I was on the board, the Water Management District provided tremendous funding for the Tampa Bay Water Desal plant. And the problem is it could have been maybe written better, but their position later on, because they were not maxing out their groundwater permits, is that plant was to be used for peaking only. So when they really were getting close to their permitted quantity from the ground, then they would run the plant. Our view was that they should run the plant 24/7, 365 and lay off the groundwater. But their position was that, we've got these permitted quantities from the ground. It's cheaper and it doesn't sound like much, but if it was, 10 cents a gallon cheaper, they wanted to pull it out of the ground rather than run the desal plant, which is more expensive. I don't know exactly how hard that plant's running now or how often it's running, but it was a very expensive build and it,
Hmm.
it certainly works, but there's no question just cranking a pump up, pulling it out of the ground is and was and will probably always be a cheaper way to do it if there's quantities available for, groundwater. But we were pushing permits down, reducing their permits when we put the desaler when they built it. We just provided funding for it. And in addition to that, we also built a couple of reservoirs. One's the Bill Young Reservoir on the Aquifer River. And then we built a massive reservoir, which was actually 1,200 acres
Wow.
down at the Peace River near Charlotte Harbor, Punta Gorda. And, fill those things up when you get large flows, a lot of water flowing, scalp it, divert it in there because all of it's going to tide anyway. And when you get a hurricane, Milton or Irma or some of these other storms come through, we got a lot of spare water, and that's the time that they were diverting when you get those, really in the rainy season, heavy rainfall. They were filling those reservoirs and then using those for potable for public supply, which is a good. I love them. The reason I love them is because you can stand out there and see what you got. You
That's
know,
true.
you're not really left wondering what's happening below the ground if you're pulling the water off the top. So
Is
that
there
would,
a way to refill the aquifers? Is
uh,
there's, I mean,
yeah, I mean, technically, yes, you can do it with recharge wells, but they don't like recharge wells for fear of contamination. A lot of people have always been, leery of doing too much in that case. But when you look at, I forget the number, it was some significant number in Orange County around the Orlando area where they had drainage issues that they put in. They called them, in the old days, they called them drainage wells, which they would drill a well and put the casing well below the water. And so it was always taking water back into the ground. And then later on, they called them recharge wells, but they just don't like them. They like the water to get there naturally, going back through the sands and through limestone and back in there and remove, impurities the way
Oh, that's true.
they intended it to be.
Yeah, I don't know how we would recharge or refill that. I don't
It,
know.
it take a
That's
lot
over
of,
my head.
yeah, it take a lot of big holes in the ground and trying to force water back in.
Yeah, that's true. So, but anyway, we need to be very careful with our water. We don't
Yeah,
have unlimited water.
the district operates monitoring wells all over the 16 counties. Those are electronically monitored, so they can tell what water levels they're doing, and they fluctuate. They've been you know dangerously low. It seemed like, uh, and it was attributed to phosphate. But there's an area called the Red Hole in Manatee County, getting pretty close to the coast over there, and that was phosphate territory, and
Mm.
it really had gotten pretty well depleted in that area. It takes a long time for water to move underground through the system. Some of it's pretty porous and some of it's, not so much, but it takes a while to kind of backfill that. So they were trying to limit any kind of withdrawals around the red hole.